Hey, we're live. Not Memorex. Ta-da! Sup?
Yup.
No balloons today.
No balloons.
No balloon. Oh, wait, I turned the speaker up a little bit too much. So it's just the Bald Brotherhood today. Lindsay is off enjoying a vacation, well-deserved one. I think she said it was Universal, right? She was going to?
Yes.
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 Which is funny because a year ago at this time, she was here at my house. So one of these days, I got to go to
Her and
hers.
Mr. Squirrely making you guys ill with how lovey they
Oh,
were.
God, it was so. So you're probably hearing some growling, and you hear that? Are you scared?
No.
You should be, because he's
It was
all of about eight
ferocious.
ounces right now. Um, hang on, I'm going to go grab them so you can meet them. Hold on. All right, come here. So for those that haven't met him yet, we have Rudy Patootie, whoop, the black one, this one, and this is Zoe. And Rudy was the one you heard growling. You should be afraid of him. He's very, very scary. All 8 ounces of him. Huh.
Oh, yeah.
So, anyway, so let me put them down. There, go fight, go play. All right, so you might hear him in the background. So yeah, holding hands and like, oh, it was disgusting. I have never seen two people at 30 whatever years old. Well, Lindsay was what, 35, 36. I think her husband is a couple of years older.
Yeah. Wasn't she saying he was a senior when she was a sophomore?
Yeah, so he's like 3 years older. They act like two teenagers to this day, and you know what? Good
More
for
power
them.
to them. Yeah.
Good for them.
Yep.
It was sickening to watch, but I say that with love and in a good way. So anyway, Steve, I'm going to have to kill you. I will find you for talking about Lindsay the way you did off air. Anyway, so couple things before we get into our topic for today. So one thing I want to talk about briefly is our friend Alan Donovan, who runs Fathers Lives Matter on Instagram. I don't know if all of you follow him. If not, you should be. But he's been struggling. He's been battling cancer and some other health issues for 6, 7 months now. Unfortunately, he took a turn for the worse yesterday. There was a post on Instagram. I have not spoken to anyone, but it doesn't sound good. He was rushed to the hospital. I haven't talked to Alan since late August, I think it was. And he was hopeful, but he was still struggling a bit. So I just wanted to give him a shout out if he happens to tune into this. Say hi, we're thinking of you, buddy. For those of you that aren't familiar with him or don't follow him, he's done some amazing work for years in the men's issues, fathers' rights specifically side. He's been on my podcast as a guest. He was part of Reforging Families.
Yep.
At first, unfortunately, his health took a turn for the worse, so he had to get out of that. But he is an amazing man, and I'm just sending all the good vibes and wishes I can to him. I wish there was stuff we could do to help him. I'm not sure what we could do, but I am gonna once we get off air, I'm gonna reach out. I think his son is running his account while he's out. I'll reach out and see if I can get an update. But if you're watching this, buddy, we are thinking of you. And then the other thing that just broke, I don't know if you're even aware of this, Curtis. And I wanted to talk about it briefly if we could. I just got the word on this from Bill Corbett that Virginia is forming, I have to read this while I'm saying it. Virginia is forming an advisory commission for men and boys.
Really?
The Democrats are doing it. They announced an effort to create this committee, first ever in the country. And basically, they're going to be looking at, it looks like 4 areas: education, because boys are falling behind, economic opportunity, health disparities, and social media and identity. So I just got this right before we came on air, like 20 minutes before we came on air. So I haven't looked into it at all, but I'm sure Bill has. Bill wouldn't send it to me if it wasn't true.
Right.
Really good news, right? And
yep. It's definitely a positive step in the right direction.
Huge step, huge step. I don't care which party does it. For those of you that listen to
No.
me, I'm kind of in the middle. But this would be huge. Does it cover everything? No.
Mhm.
I'm okay with that, right? It's actually hitting the big one that I think right now, which is education, because I do think that's a serious, serious issue. We've now had what 3 generations of boys falling behind.
3 to 4, yeah.
Yeah, and it's progressively getting worse each
Mhm.
generation. I talk about it often, probably not enough, actually. It's one of my passions. And so this is a huge step forward. I like the economic opportunity part of it
Mhm.
too. It's tied in with education, I think, but specifically, it looks like what Bill was saying is they're talking about young men being disconnected from stable work or skills training, health disparities, mental health in particular, big stuff. There is look, there's a ton of things they could be covering. You could pick it apart that maybe they should be doing this instead of that. Let's not go there. Let's take the wins for what they are, right?
At this
Uh,
point, here's the thing, we got nothing negative right now. Let's
no,
not even focus on it.
can you imagine if every state did this?
Oh, this would
Game
be
changer.
game changing, period.
And don't
Trust
think
me.
I'm not going to use this in
Oh,
North
yeah.
Carolina, and I'm sure you will in Iowa to say,
Yep.
why are they doing it? I'll
Right.
ram it right up the Republicans' ass. To be honest with you, I will.
I gotta be honest. I Iowa's Republicans are not like a lot of other states' Republicans. Take for Tennessee for example. In Tennessee, it's the Democrats pushing the 50-50, and it's the Republicans providing the resistance. Here, it's the
It's
opposite.
the opposite, and
I just
it's
what is
been
going on?
Curtis. It's been that way since I got involved in the '90s.
Oh, I
It's
just
that's why I hate that so many people want to pigeonhole both parties into certain areas. Right. The fact of the matter is they both suck, as I talk about often. But they also both, to be fair, there are people within those parties that are very pro man and father, right? And I honestly can say I truly believe it's about 50-50 in both parties, right?
yeah.
At least in my experience. Now, obviously, I'm limited to New York and North Carolina as far as at the state level. Um, I've talked about it many times before. In New York, when we were trying to get shared parenting, we had, after some serious arm twisting, we had 100% of the Republicans. Not that they all wanted to vote for it, but we weren't giving them a choice.
Mhm.
Um, but we had more than 3/4 of the Democrats. The bill would have passed, as I've talked about many times, if we could have got
Right.
it to the floor. North Carolina is, again, I'm seeing similar, right? I get a lot of pushback from the Republicans, to be honest with you. They're stuck in the 1990s era. Men are deadbeats, men are leaving the family, men are walking out, bullshit. Um, and I see a lot of the Democrats, again, a lot of them hate men. We all know that, but there are more than a few that are very pro man. That's why I say we can't get pigeonholed on one party is in our favor and one's not, which so many people do.
Yes.
And I've got a scathing video coming out on the Republican Party. I think I've scheduled it for Friday. It might be Saturday. Pretty sure it's Friday. That I'm just shredding Speaker Johnson over the budget, because I'll give you guys a preview since you're watching this. I don't know if you are a sicko like me, but I tend to watch a couple of the Sunday morning programs. And he was on a couple of weeks ago talking about the budget battle and saying that there's a lot of squawking about Medicare, Medicaid, Medicare, right? And he specifically said that they're not going to target everyone. They're just going to get and I'm paraphrasing this, the lazy men off of Medicare, not the lazy women, the lazy men, or the men who don't have children.
Okay.
So apparently he's okay with leaving the lazy women and the women who have children on or don't have children on it, but not the men. And I mean, I have a problem with that, right? If he had
Mhm.
said we're going to go after adults. Okay, I'll buy it. But he was very specific, and he did it on more than one show. So he can't say he slipped, right? There's no, trust me, this was focus grouped and all that when he said it. As Curtis knows, they have their little things they do. But it just shows that the Republicans are frauds in a lot of cases. They talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. The Democrats generally will tell you exactly who they are. They either hate men or they actually, a lot of them will tell you they love them, and they do. They're much more forward, I think, than the Republican Party. The Republican Party is playing a game. So watch for that video. But this is exciting news to me, seeing Virginia's going to do this. And, if you're not in Virginia, go look this up and send an email to your legislator.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Especially since session for most of the states starts in January.
Yep. Now's the time to hit them.
Now's the time.
Now is the time.
Because they are on an off election season.
Mm-hmm.
They're not in the election cycle right now. Hit them now.
Hit them hard, too.
Hit them hard.
Send them an email going, go look up, you can Google it, Virginia Advisory Commission for Men and Boys.
Mm-hmm.
Go look it up, find the article or an article about it, forward that in your email saying, how come Virginia's doing this and we're not? You don't even have to get Rudy. Are you scared?
No.
I'm terrified right now. But sending that to them and saying, why aren't you doing this, puts them on the spot, right? Me personally, I'm going to send it to every legislator in North Carolina. House, Senate, our governor, all of them. I'll send it to the comptroller. I don't care. Saying, why is North Carolina not doing this? And I've done this with other things. You're probably not going to get a response from most of them, but you'll be surprised how many will respond to you. And, like in my case where I am, I look for the ones I want responses from are my legislators, right? My state senator and my House rep. If they don't reply to me, then I have a problem. If somebody out, say Charlotte area doesn't, okay, I'm not their constituent, so they might not get back to me. And they should, don't get me wrong, but I'm not going to squawk over that. But my people who I know, if they don't handle it, then I got a problem with it. So just some good news I thought we would talk about briefly because, we got to celebrate the wins, guys. This is
Absolutely.
a huge, I know you guys may not think so. This is a huge win for us.
It looks like they're really hitting the high points as far as like the meat and the potatoes. It's not, I wouldn't say this is anything like what the Democrats in Congress attempted to do. This is like right on par with they really want to face a serious problem. They want to face it.
Yeah, one of the things I noticed is that they were pulling up specific statistics and pointing to them.
Oh, yeah. 13% of young men in Virginia between 16 to 24 are not in school and are not working. Whoa.
Suicide,
men and boys accounted for 4 out of 5 unaliving.
Yep.
In Virginia. That's Virginia.
Yep.
And men account for 71% of unintentional. So 1 in 10 working age men in Virginia lack health insurance, a third higher than women.
Mm-hmm.
And then only 8%.
That would be called Medicare, Curtis.
Yeah. 8% of nurses in the state are men.
8%.
So, and that would also mean that it's analogous to teachers. And those are kind of the two fields where you make a huge impact.
Well, I mean, we've talked about that before. So it's called collectively heal, right? There's STEM for women.
Yeah.
There should be heal for men. Health, education, literacy. I forget what's the A. I'm blanking right now. Anyway, there are drastic shortages of teachers. There are drastic shortages of nurses. There's no recruitment of men into those fields. In fact, specifically to teaching, they try and drive men out. Nursing's not as bad, but I was actually talking to a kid locally who is going to school for nursing, and he's like, they didn't recruit me, but they didn't discourage me, dude.
He's ferocious.
Wait till he's, wait till his balls come in. We don't have any right now. But, you think about when they talk about the teacher shortage, they could solve it in half a decade, right? Encourage boys to go to college to become teachers, encourage them within college to become teachers. 5 years for a master's, half a decade, you could be flooded with teachers.
Yeah.
And teachers that they need male teachers,
Mhm.
but there's been a shortage for 20 years now, give or take. And you don't see
You
any
know
of
what? This school year, 2026 will be my 25th graduation anniversary. And then you look at that and you kind of go, hold on. Like that was kind of the end of having solid male role models in the high schools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Made me feel old, by the way. 25th, mine's 45 this year.
Sorry.
And but like, so I can't give hard numbers, but in my case, it was probably 60% female, 40% male teachers in high school. What was it at your time?
During my time at high school, it was 30-70.
Okay. So you saw a drop there.
So yeah, because yeah. And I'll tell you what, I had to have the male teachers because the female teachers I gave a run for their money.
Okay.
In my particular group of studies, I would tell you in my particular group of studies, 90% of my teachers were male. And that was by choice because I needed that. I didn't like having female teachers, especially since I was so strong-willed and bullheaded. And I knew that about myself. And I gravitated towards masculine authority.
Which most boys do at that age.
Oh yeah.
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 That's the problem, right? With not having male teachers. And like in my junior year, I took 9 classes. I think I had 7 male teachers. So I can kind of mirror what you're talking about, right? I only had 2 female teachers. And I didn't plan that. It's just how it fell within the school, right? They did scheduling. But I remember that year. And to your point, it had an effect on me, right? Having those male role models, one in particular, who was my philosophy teacher, Mr. Peterson, remember him to this day. Maybe he's still alive. I don't know. He was probably 40 at the time, but he had a dramatic effect on me on a personal level, just chit-chatting, right? Forget as a teacher, just talking to me about, it was philosophy that he taught. He taught other things too, but that was his primary with me. And we would just have conversations about things. And, to this day, I remember them. It was really cool. At the end of the year, he would get arrested now, but he used to have a big party for all his students, and we went to his house, and some of us got served. If you catch my drift, right? Now, mind you, drinking age was 18, and you had to be 18, but he was your classic Grateful Dead hippie, 60s hippie, but he did so much for me, and I will forever be grateful to him for that.
Right.
And now you might not find that as a boy. You might have all female teachers. And that's not to knock female teachers, but they can't, much like dads and moms can't teach the opposite. Same with teachers.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. It's a lot when it comes down to the teachers as a whole, when you're a young man who is very impressionable. And the thing is I think you kind of get that idea of, there are 2 ways for a young man to become a strong young man. You can either do it by overpowering someone that's weaker, or overpowering someone because you actually ascended correctly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think those two schools of thought are what make weak-minded men who are actually resentful that end up being very dysfunctional. And when you have the ones that ascended the correct way, those are the ones that make the cut, that really make the big impact. And
Oh,
when we don't
couldn't agree
have
more.
that,
Yeah.
we're missing that critical component.
And that's where we've been missing it for at least a generation, full generation.
Yes.
I mean, it started 3 or 4 generations ago, but I think in the last generation, which are now the kids in college, really, right? And seeing and talking to those men, and I'm generalizing, I admit, but they are lost, right?
Mhm.
A lot of them reach out to me, and they've been raised by single mothers, right?
Mm.
Many of them have had no male authority in their life at all, no male teachers, didn't play sports, right? Their sport was video games. They're very reclusive. They
Mhm.
don't have a lot of friends. And I've done research on it, read books, articles, and all that. When we talk about the male loneliness epidemic, I always say there isn't one because what they're talking about is in regard to dating, right? And relationships, marriage.
Right.
There is not a male loneliness epidemic as far as dating goes or relationships with women. There is one as far as men not having male friends, not having engagement with people in general. They become very reclusive. There's two different and distinct things.
Yeah, but
Women have jumped on it as well. It's because we're rejecting them because they want a power trip off of it, but that's not true.
wouldn't you say that loneliness, when they say that word, when you say the word lonely, it kind of it infers or it implies a desire to be around
Yes.
someone. They don't have any desire though.
No.
None.
It's more of a male isolation
Oh
epidemic.
yes, I would agree with
That's
that.
how I phrase it, right? It's again within the context of social media, they're trying to phrase it as men can't get dates, men aren't marrying, blah blah blah. And we're strong women. We win.
Oh yeah,
No,
you're
you
really
haven't. You
strong.
lost, right? It's MGTOW 20 years ago. But there is
Sorry.
a yeah, there is a very real um epidemic where men are withdrawing, right? But
Mhm.
it's not that they're withdrawing from, yes, part of it is dating and marriage, absolutely, but they're withdrawing from society and they're isolating themselves. They're sitting in their homes. They're happy though, right? I talk to a lot of these young men.
Oh
They're
yeah.
generally speaking, they're happy. I come home, I jump on Call of Duty for 6 hours a night, and that's great. There's been times my game was Battlefield 1942. I just aged myself, and I still play it every once in a while. But that was different for me. That was not my night every night. I might jump on and have a night where I did 6 hours, but these boys are doing it every single night, right? And they don't have male friends, and that's one of the things I encourage them to do is find male friends. Well, how do I do that? Just talk to guys.
Well, what's funny is this kind of segues into what we're going to talk about
Yeah,
today,
go for it.
because here's the funny part that goes hand in hand with what you're saying. Men inherently don't want any bit of the drama. They don't.
Exactly.
But when they encounter single mothers who have exposed their dads to gaslighting and have exposed their dads to emotional manipulation, there's bleed over because it inherently occurs because they're men
Hmm.
or supposed to be men.
Hmm.
Just by virtue, just because you are a male doesn't necessarily mean that you fit the definition of man.
Right.
So we're looking at this going, okay, so how does that play into what's happening today in today's society? Is when you say for the last 3 to 4 generations, we've been dealing with gaslighting and emotional manipulation in almost every facet of our everyday lives, to include divorce court,
Eh, Without question, everything.
everything.
And you'll often hear me talk about it in the videos that I do. Men are bombarded with this literally from the day they're born until the day they die,
Hmm.
in every aspect of their life. You're talking
Right.
about like family court. It's gotten to the point now, and this is why so many, especially the younger men, are walking away from dating and marriage, is because they're told literally from the time they're born that they're going to end up divorced and they're going to be a deadbeat dad.
Right.
There, there's no question of it, right? It's like you're going to be a loser, deadbeat, incel dad, a blah, blah, blah. Throw all the acronyms they use. And to think that that's not having an effect and driving them away, you're nuts. But yet, and that's why, like, I was interested in the Virginia thing. I'll be curious to see if they look into that at all, right? Because it's affecting education. Boys are withdrawing from school because they're bombarded with negativity in school,
Hmm.
right? You're toxic. Why? Because I have XY chromosomes. Really? Okay.
Cares. Sorry. I well, and I would say I was the unconventional student. I was a non-traditional student. I went to the military first, had a family, and then went to school, right?
Mhm.
So when I would get hit with those things, I'd be like, uh, okay. Like, and you're like 18, 19 years old and don't know your head from your ass. And, and it kind of, what kills me is these these males are getting bombarded negatively. And let's say that they have the unfortunate experience of having a one night stand that goes a little haywire, and they end up with a child.
Mhm.
They end up paying child support and getting that kid every other weekend, and maybe that mid pizza day, right? Midweek pizza
The
dinner.
pizza date. Yep.
Yep. So what's interesting is this has just happened. The Iowa Supreme Court has announced that they're yet again increasing the child support on the child support guidelines again.
To what?
So for one child, it's 7.3%. For two children, it's 11 something percent.
I wouldn't
And
be
for
complaining.
it, well, hold on. That's from what it was. Now
Yeah.
let's talk about this. In January 1 of 2022, they increased it 8.6% across the board. January 1, 2023, they increased it 14.1% straight across the board. January 1, 2026, they're going to increase it yet again for the third change in 4 years to 7.3% for one child, 11 some for the second child, and it's like 14 or 15% for the third child. And then it for every child thereafter.
I'm moving to Iowa.
But no. You don't understand. Like, we went from being 26th in the nation to 11th. And now, after this is done, I think we're going to end up like fifth as
Uh,
having the highest.
I mean, just as context, New York 20 years ago was 17 for one, 25 for two, and 35 are up for three or more.
Oh, now these are just the increases on what's existing.
Yeah, if you think about it in relation to inflation, hey, I made a rhyme. We're way above the inflation rate, right?
Mhm.
I don't have a problem with child support increases tied to inflation. I think that's reasonable, right? If costs go up, hey, dude, he's funny as hell. You're gonna have to deal with it. I'm not gonna shut him up.
It's humorous. I
It
mean,
is hilarious. He thinks he's so tough. All 8 ounces of them. If you have, let's say, you're paying 1,000 a month, just to have a nice round number, and inflation goes up. What was it? 2.5%, I think, is last month, right?
right.
Okay, cost of living 2.5%. I really don't have a problem with that. I think that's more than fair.
I
But you're
think that
jumping
the
14.
income, but the income increases are built in. So if I'm making, let's
True.
say I'm making 3,000 a month, let's say, and my child support's 1,000 a month, and we say we'll go with the standard third, right? If
Mhm.
my take home's 3,000 and I pay standard third, it's $1,000 a month in child support. Well, it's already built in. As I increase in income, I'm going to pay more in child support.
But that's assuming your income increases,
Right.
which a
But
lot these days is not happening.
well, and here's the thing. How is that okay? How does that make sense to make it cost prohibitive to be able to provide for a kid when you're going to make it so that you can't even
Oh,
live?
no, I get your point on that, right? There's no perfect solution to it, but it starts with having realistic guidelines from day one, which they don't,
Mhm.
right?
No.
I'll tell you, you know this. Iowa's doing it because they want more federal dollars,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
The more they bring in, the more revenue they get from the feds. Our tax dollars, right? You
Mhm.
want to cut taxes, do away with Title 4D. Boom, problem solved, right? Millions and actually billions, right? And they don't need to have it. The
Mhm.
states universally have programs in place to collect it automatically. And I always tell men, always choose that option. If you're ordered to pay child support, make sure that it's garnished out of your check and sent to the state.
Mhm.
Because then when she inevitably claims you're not paying, and she will, right?
Mhm.
You go, Your Honor, here's my check. Here's my pay stub. The state has it. You got to talk to the state. I had nothing to do with it. I had it happen to me. She claimed I hadn't paid in 6 months, right? Because she wasn't the brightest bulb in the bunch. Well, we go into court because she filed a petition. And I went to the judge and I had all my pay stubs. And I'm like, Your Honor, here's my pay stubs. They're pulling out whatever it was. I forget the number, but whatever it was, I was paid weekly, every week. I can't control whether the state gives it to her or not. He looked at that. He looked at her and he goes, Why are we here? Right. And he said to her, Are you getting your money? She goes, No, there's at least, I forget, like, let's say 2 months behind. He's like, Did you call the state? No, that's his job. No, it's not. It's her job to call the state.
Right.
You know, I could have been, now, if I had been writing her checks directly, and it's a whole other
Then
ballgame.
yeah.
Even if you have cash checks, they'll question that, right? Because I've had guys that have done that, had cash checks. They won in the long run. They had to go through hell, right?
Mhm.
Just let it be garnished and be done with it. It
Right.
sucks, but it's actually peace of mind for you as a
It's
father.
paid and you don't have to screw with it.
You don't ever have to worry about it, and they inevitably will come after you. They being the mothers, because it's one of their games they like to play.
Right.
And then you've got an airtight defense. I
Mhm.
I, I do know of it, dude. Hold on, here he is, right here, the little tough guy.
Oh, he's so tough.
um, he's a good boy though. No, that's my train of thought. Oh, I have had guys, that have had to jump through the hoops, but ultimately, in New York State, it was the Division of Child Support Enforcement, right?
Mhm.
And every state has them. So if you, as a father, take advantage of that, that's one thing. But we don't need Title 4D to fund that. Let the states fund it.
Well, why if you give them money every like women pay non-custodial parent or the custodial parents will pay a $35 yearly fee if
Mm-hmm.
you want to use the Title 40 agency that the state has, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason why we can't replicate that.
Piece of cake.
Yeah, and then here's the other thing that is interesting. Steve, this chair is 130 years old and it was my great great grandfather's. There's that. Houston, they do not take Social Security money for Title 4D. It is just in the Social Security code. It is
Yeah, that's
actually,
true. Yeah.
yeah, it's actually out of the Congressional General Fund. Um, And then
The problem is they took Social Security money and dumped it into the Congressional General Fund.
back in the 60s, yes.
Yeah.
So
that's but it's a misnomer that Social
yes.
Security is paying for it. That's true.
So it's I just don't. I struggle with it because we're incentivizing this position more than what we need to. Generally speaking, you and I talk and we go, no, we don't want to touch child support. But more and more, I'm starting to get the sense that if it keeps going up, I think we're going to have to.
Well, when I say don't touch it or talk about it, I come from the position that we have to get shared parenting done first.
Absolutely. I agree.
It's going to go for my ears now. This dude loves my ears. I don't know why. There's only so many eggs we can have in the basket at a time, right? And as far as if you get shared parenting, that's going to directly affect child support eventually. Maybe not right at first, right? Because shared parenting does not address child support. You can come out with 5149 and if you may, or 50-50, if you make more money, you're paying child support, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But once you have shared parenting in place, now you have a far more legitimate argument to make. To go, wait a minute, the kids are with us equally time. Why am I giving her 30% of my salary? Right? Or whatever.
Right.
And post tax, because I don't get any tax breaks or didn't, right? I would show you his winky, Steve, but I don't think anybody wants to see that. But I get the point that we need to talk about child support, right? It is important. I don't want to say that it's not something we should be talking about, but like I said, and you and I have talked about it off air, on air, and all that. There's only so much we can do. We can't even win one battle, right?
Right. And going back to one of our friends in the shared parenting fight, Mark Ludwig, he'd already opened up dialogue with some of the Iowa legislators here about child support and child support guidelines and all of that. What's interesting is if let's say you talk about a bankruptcy happening on a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, which is a complete discharge of all your debt except for a few things. What's interesting is that dollar amount that you see for like groceries and personal hygiene items, if you look at it on a needs-based thing, we've already discussed, it's about $300 a month per person.
Yeah.
And with then medical expenses tied into it as well, like out-of-pocket stuff, then we also know that it's going to be right around $400. So when you cut that in half, and that's $200 per kid per month, we talked about doing this all the time. And we know that these economists that the states hire, they're overinflating because they want to make sure that they keep their contract.
Well, yeah, it's all about them making money, right?
Correct.
Which, by the way, most of the money that funds those studies comes out of 4D.
Correct. So it only stands to reason, hey, we could funnel this money. I'm going to tell you, as a mayor, my job is to find out where the money is going to come from for the next project. That's all there is to it. And if you want my honest opinion, people ask me all the time, hey, what's your opinion about taking out a bond on this or taking out a bond on that? That's a loan. Why would I take out a loan where we're attaching interest rate to tax dollars? That's stupid. You know what we could do? Set up a savings account for that project. Earmark it specifically for that project. Guess what you get to do then? You get to earn interest on that money. But you know what? Nobody thinks about that. We have a project going on. If we had enough foresight 10 or 15 years ago, we would have already had the money already saved up. Yeah. And it would have saved over $5 million. $5 million.
But they don't think long term like that.
No.
Most politicians think, all right, I'm in office for X number of years, right? I'll push everything I can down the road. You're seeing Social Security is a perfect example of it. It's been
Oh yeah,
broken for
it's
40
only on
years.
what's there, what's on the face of it, right?
Yeah. So I'll worry about it when I need to, but I don't need to worry about it because I'm going to be retired before it goes bankrupt, right? That's how a lot of the senators were in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and all
Today,
that. It's the same scenario. And you're seeing that also, I think, with child support is
Mhm,
one, it's a third rail, right? Because
mhm.
anytime they start talking about it, the women's groups come out in force, which should tell you something. Angel, he's a Shorkie, a Shih Tzu Yorkie mix. Um, but it's interesting going back to what we were talking about with the gaslighting and all that. It's again, it's an example of what they do to men, right?
Mhm.
They use child support, they use all of this to try and make men feel guilty or bad or,
Right,
you know,
which is the aim.
oh, it's absolutely the aim, right? It's we're
Mhm.
going to show those men, we're going to defeat the patriarchy by destroying men. How's that working out for you,
It's
right?
not.
It's not. Society's literally falling apart. You
Mhm,
have a generation now, and I'm sorry, my youngins, but you're lost. And you guys are the ones telling me that. I mean, I've had 6, 7 conversations last month with kids. They're kids to me, they're adults,
mhm,
but you know, men and boys 18 to 28, right? Roughly in
mhm.
that area. And they're all saying the same thing to me.
Yep.
I either went to college and dropped out or didn't go at all. I was berated constantly when I was there by the professors. That some of them shared, it's still going on now. You go to orientation your first day, the boys get lectured on sexual harassment and the girls get lectured on how to claim sexual harassment, basically, right? Um, it's there's actually a new studies coming out or came out talking about they did a blind test of teachers for grading, and it conclusively showed that teachers grade boys harder than girls. So, and then you turn around, you blame the boys for it. That's what we're talking about with the gaslighting, right? It's you look at stuff like that, and then you wonder why boys are the ones shooting up schools. Well, you're doing it to them. You're creating these monsters. I don't, I'm one of those ones that I do think you can make the argument there are some people that are just plain psychopaths. Without question, that's the case, right?
Mhm.
Jeffrey Dahmer being a good example of that.
Oh,
Uh, but
yeah.
but there's also when you look, and I'm doing a lot of research on this. When you're looking at the school shootings, that's not what these boys are. They're not. They're they're groomed into being evil, to put it another way, right? They're told day after day, you are toxic. There is something inherently wrong with you. They're bullied. They're in single mother homes with very often no contact with any males. The pattern is consistent across the board on it. And I'm not saying it's universal.
No.
When you look at 80 something percent of these kids that are shooting up school are in single mother homes, you think maybe we should be having a discussion about that? Why?
Well, absolutely. I mean, it's not any different than when you and I run across these people that we have struggles with, aka legislators, and we find out that some of those legislators had really bad relationships with their fathers, or their
Mhm,
mother was their only source of like parenting. Oh,
mhm.
well, okay, was that by choice? I mean, and that kid at that time never had a choice in the matter. Okay, so what's it tell us? It tells us that women are really manipulative inherently by nature. Men inherently,
Without
if
question in my mind.
if if you expose a man, I mean, okay, so let's take Jordan Peterson for example. He says in one of his things where he says, um, "I could teach a dog how to die by bopping them on the nose by starvation, by bopping them on the nose 50 times with the newspaper, and they will not eat that. They will not eat food out of their food bowl. They will wither away and die."
It's conditioning, yeah.
Yeah. So at that point, the thing is all of those males were bombarded hit over and over and over and over and conditioned
Mhm.
by these women that, oh my, you have a penis and testicles, and that's why you're awful. And
Yep.
then it just cycles in their head.
And it's affecting the girls too
Oh
because
yeah.
they believe that to be the case
Oh yeah.
universally.
One's picking it up and buying right into it. And they're
Mhm.
like, oh, I've got the right gender. The other gender over here is going, oh, I've got the wrong one. And then we wonder why we have all kinds of different issues with identity because
Mhm.
they've lost all of their role models.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it, I'll be interested to see in 20, 30, 40, 50 years where what you're talking about, the real effects. We're seeing effects now, right? Drastic
Mhm.
ones.
Oh, yeah.
But these effects, we're just at the beginning of them. It's been going on for 50 years, but it's really coming to the forefront in the last 5 to 10. And you're seeing men are withdrawing from society. We talked about that earlier. Men are not going to be willing to do the dirty jobs anymore. Who's going to do them? Because women sure as hell ain't going to do them. They're
Well,
not going to
and
break a nail digging a sewer. Not
well, and
happening.
the other part of that equation is I'm curious to see how far the money talks bullshit walks thing is going to drive this one because I got a funny feeling that where ideology ends, financial like incentive takes over. And I
Okay.
think that might be akin to uh who was it? Was it Locke? Or was it I think it was Locke who'd said where law ends, tyranny begins.
I don't know if it was locked, but I know the phrase you're talking about. Yeah.
I'm trying to think.
Not sure on that. But to your point though, I mean that's true,
Right.
right? Um I Here's my viewpoint on that. I don't know that you're going to see that now. 10 years ago I would have agreed with you 100%, right?
Hmm.
I think now things have become so bad, no amount of money is going to change it for the boys and the men. I really don't think you can
Right.
financially incentivize them back into the workforce because you got to remember when the reasons they're leaving, fear of false allegations,
Hmm.
legitimate fear, right?
Right.
Knowing they're not going to get promoted because they're a man and a woman will always get preference. If you're a white man, then you got to throw race into it, right? Stuff
Or
like that. So it doesn't matter. You could throw tens of hundreds of dollars of bills at them, but they're going to sit there and go, okay, you're going to pay me $1,000 more, but one, I'm going to have to do more work than the women.
you're in
Two,
a
you're not
different
going to give me
tax
any credit
bracket. They're
for it,
taking more child support.
right? I have to live with a constant threat that she's going to claim I harassed her because I said good morning, right?
Mhm.
No amount of money is going to overcome that. Now I could be wrong.
It-
I'd be curious to ask the younger ones
but
though.
I'm talking about the shit jobs, right?
The
The
shit jobs
actual
specifically.
yes. So with the shit jobs, how much social interaction do we really have, especially in a male dominated job or career? If you were to look at like plumbing, for example, or septics systems, or excavating where you're putting in sewer systems and all that, where the random female is on a crew here and there, I'm not.
All right, I've talked to some. Well, one in particular is a firefighter.
Mhm. Well,
So
I'd be curious to hear about this because firefighters actually professional firefighters are in larger cities where there's a more
yes,
yeah,
so I talked with one professional department, not a volunteer.
right.
There is one female on the whole shift, right?
Mhm.
So they work days. They work, it's A day, B day, B crew, C crew. I
Right.
don't think they have a D, but anyway, so they work like every third day, and they're on for 24 hours. where his station is, there's 3 different vehicles. I think they call it a truck. They have different terms for it. It's a pumper, a hook and ladder, and some other thing, right?
Or a tanker.
Something.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
There's one woman in the whole firehouse on his shift. They live in fear of her. Now, he's very clear. Now, he's telling me this privately, right? I'm not going to say where it is or anything like that, but they live in fear of her. She's never done or said anything to create that herself. And he was very clear on that. He's like, look, she's one of the guys. She acts like us. She talks like us. She's very much like us.
Right.
But that doesn't mean at the drop of a hat, she can't switch. And we always have to be aware of that. And they are walking on eggshells 24/7, literally when they're there, right?
Right.
And they're there for an entire day. They, think about that. So, there's give or take something like 12 or 13 people on the shift, right? To man all the things. One of them is a woman. She's controlling, this is his words, she's controlling the firehouse. She's not a captain or anything either. She's on one of the rigs. But they live in fear of her. Think about that now from, if you're a man, do you want to go into that profession and have to face that every single day?
No.
You think about road crews, right? You talk about road crews. They always are trying to get one woman on the crew to wave the flag so they can claim they hired a woman, right?
Right.
Or they have one in the office. So these guys may be out on the road laying tar or whatever.
Right.
But they're answering to a woman in the office. And they piss her off. She files an allegation. They're fucked. That's what's happening. It doesn't necessarily have to be overt. It's that legitimate concern, right? And I think, because women love to say, we got men afraid of us. They're not afraid of the women particularly, right, in person.
They're afraid of the consequences set forth in the system.
Thereof. Exactly.
Yeah.
And again, that goes back to what you were talking about earlier, the gaslighting and all that. They've been conditioned to believe that. Sounds like a hostage situation. Yeah, he didn't say it directly that way, but it
is.
And I remember, you got to understand, when I was growing up, half my family were firefighters, okay? I was in the firehouses. There were no women around. None. Zero. Zilch. And it was testosterone central, right? That was 50 years ago. Things have changed. I understand that. But now we've gone so far the other way where a woman can claim anything she wants and she's going to be believed.
Well, and so offline, you and I had a discussion where I sent you a reel on Instagram today.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the father played the typical woman's game.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't matter. He still lost his ass. Because she shifted gears and said, okay, fine, I'll take the high road. And then said, she goes into court on the day and says, oh, I didn't pay any attention. I wasn't really worried about what he had to say or what his thoughts on me were. It didn't really matter. My focus was strictly on the kids. Okay. 98% of the time, we see that out of the dads going into family court.
Yep.
And they get their asses handed to them like 89, 90% of the time.
Yep. He's just saying those things.
And then all of a sudden it gets like, what the hell?
Because there's no way women can lose, right? And again, it goes back to what we're talking about. Judges now, most family court judges that I'm seeing, 40s, 50s, early 60s for the most part, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think the bulk of them, again, there are exceptions, but the bulk of them are probably in their 40s at this point. That means they grew up in the 80s when this was all going on. Yep. Deadbeat dads and all that was driven home back then. So they were conditioned. Now they're on the bench. You think that's not playing a role?
And that's the funny part, right? We've talked about this before. the worst of the attorneys end up on the bench because they're only paying judges 150 to 180 a year. And if you're a good attorney, you're taking home 300,000 plus a year. You're taking home that.
That's if you're, I would say, a poor attorney can bring that in.
Well, right.
Where you are too,
right. And that's when you know that you have the really shitty ones that are going to the bench because they're happy with 150, 160, 170,000 a year. And it's like, how? Why? You could be charging $300 an hour. Mm-hmm. You could be clearing bank. If you charge 2,000 hours in a year, that's 600,000 a year. That's like after taxes and your overhead, you're taking home 300 plus.
You can make 300,000 doing closings, real estate.
Correct.
No stress.
No litigation.
No work.
No overtime.
No work. Yeah. You work Monday to Friday, 8 to 5.
All done for you.
I mean, you're literally just standing there going, watch the person sign, basically. You make $300,000 a year. You're going to choose that or a family court judge over that? Come on. Now, are there some out there that are doing it for the, quote, good reasons? Sure. They're few and far between, and they quickly get jaded, much like, and we've talked about this too, the guardian ad litems. I've shared the story a million times about my attorney. They're making $50 an hour. I mean, if you're an attorney making $50 an hour, you got to be really bad. I mean, really bad. Yeah, they're the ones ultimately that are deciding what's going to happen with the children because the judges just rubber stamp what they say. I mean, that's scary. Or
I think the criminal defense attorneys that are on contract from the state, $68 an hour here.
What does that tell you? What kind of defense you're going to get for that, right?
Right. And that's the ones they're picking for judges. You're going to have them decide a family law case that is complicated? What?
I mean, but again, it goes back to the other part of that is these people are all conditioned. They're human beings. We may not think judges aren't human beings. They are. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And I've, talked many times about my judge in my case who, we were in front of him every month basically for 11 years. And I got to know him personally and talked with him briefly, here and there. And I wouldn't want his job. But he was a human being. And, when you in the courtroom, look, he gave some really bad decisions to me, but he also gave me some good ones. And generally speaking, I think he was trying to be fair, generally speaking, right?
Oh, Lord, Steve.
But he couldn't get past his conditioning, right? When we were fighting over custody, it was obvious he believed in the tender years doctrine. He wasn't coming out of that, right? My attorney made that very clear to me. He's not coming out of it. Deal with it. There's nothing you can do, right? And that's what fathers are told. And that's why they, when women will say, well, if he cared, he'd fight harder. When you have an attorney literally looking you in the eye going, you have zero chance of winning with this judge. But if you want to pay me $500,000, I'll fight, but you're still going to lose. Because that's what was said to me. I mean, if you have half a brain, you're going to go, okay, I guess I won't fight for custody, right? I mean, it took me 11 years to get custody. 11 years.
Yeah. I mean,
and 6 figures. And I represented myself half the time.
I think a lot of that's not uncommon. How many times have we heard the same old song and dance?
Not only is it not uncommon, it's the norm.
It is. I mean, we probably hear it 95+% of the time.
If not higher.
If not higher.
I mean, when you look at the numbers for custody and you realize that roughly 85% of the time mom's getting custody, right? And I don't want to hear about joint custody because joint custody is irrelevant. That just talks about education and medical decision. That's all joint custody is. Has nothing to do with who's raising the kid. Nothing.
Yeah, there's a difference between legal custody and physical care.
Physical custody is what matters. And mothers get physical custody 85 to 90% of the time.
Yep.
Primary physical custody. So That in and of itself is proof the system is biased. You don't need to do any other research. It's that simple.
Well, how many times do we magnify that? We magnified that in 2020 when the child support statistics came out. 73% of non-custodial fathers paid their child support in full and on time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the average child support payment was over $1,200 a month. Okay, conversely, the non-custodial mothers paid their child support in full and on time only 40% of the time. And the average child support payment was right around $500 a month.
Yep.
It showed that only the worst of the worst mothers got physical custody taken away.
Mm-hmm. And again, this has been going on for 4 generations now, 3-4 generations.
Mm-hmm.
It's all goes back to what you were talking about earlier. It's conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
It's gaslighting of all the parties. It's designed and has been designed to create division.
Right.
I'd argue, and I know Bill Corbett, if he was listening, would definitely agree with me. It's the greatest psyop of all time. It really is.
Yes. Yes.
We've reached a point now where, and again, I'm generalizing, I admit that, but you look at women today of any age, they are so far gone with regard to how men think and what men feel. They are, and I say it all the time in my videos, they are absolutely convinced they know better than men how men think and feel and what they want. And they will tell you that to your face. You don't know what you're talking about. I do. You're trying to tell me how I feel. Yeah, I know how you feel. And when you've reached that point, and that's conditioned into them, when you've reached that point, there's no logic, there's no reasoning, there's no ability to even have a conversation, right? And because of that, that's why men are done. That's why they're walking away from relationships, the workplace, all of it. And society is crumbling because of it. You look about what's going on now, and again, I don't want to get into the political weeds on it, but you see all the crime going on, and the response is, one party's like, we're not going to do anything, and the other's like, we're sending in the National Guard. At some point, men are going to go, yeah, I'm not joining the National Guard. It's actually already happening. They're struggling to recruit in some states.
Oh yeah, the recruiting. Oddly, the one service that is not struggling to meet their recruiting goals is the Marine Corps, and it's because they've had the same message the entire time.
They've been consistent all along, yeah.
All along. They only want the best of the best.
Right.
They want the ones who want to embrace the suck.
But think about it from, let's say you went into the military at what age?
17.
All right. So let's say you're a 17-year-old right now, seeing what's going on. Whether you choose active duty or National Guard, you could do either. Let's say, for the sake of argument, National Guard. Are you going in the National Guard right now, knowing there's a chance you could get called up and be sent to some city to be spat on and have rocks thrown at you and all this other stuff? Fuck no.
So it's 17 in that mindset. The only reason I joined the military at that point was because I wanted a college education.
Well, what year was that?
It would have been 2000.
Totally different time frame.
Correct.
Yeah.
It was even pre 9/11.
Right. Totally different time frame. Now, though, these boys are looking at it going, wait a minute. You want me to go into the National Guard or the military where I'm going to be immediately labeled as a threat to the democracy. I'm going to be spat on, have bricks thrown at me. They want my identity known so they can go after my family. There's no way they're going to sign up. And that's what's happening, right? Or you talk about going into the army, say. You see what's going on in Ukraine, stuff that's happening in the Mideast and all that. We're this close on any particular day to being in a war. Taiwan, right? Do I want to be in that position? No. So therefore, I'm not going to join, which is why the military is struggling to recruit. Look at fire. Look at the police. They're struggling like hell. I've talked to local police chiefs. I had one offer me a job. I'm freaking 62 years old. He's like, "Can you pass the PT test?" I said, "Sure." He goes, "I'll hire you tomorrow." I'm like, "You got to be shitting me." Right? I mean, he wasn't joking either. He's like, "You can start Monday as long as you can pass the PT test." And I'm like, "Well, what was the test?" And it was laughable. I mean, the test was laughable, right? They are so desperate. They can't get anyone because men are not signing up. They are doing everything they can to get women too. But guess what? There are women who will, but majority of the time, nope, they don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah, I firmly believe you have to have a consistent message when it comes to like military recruiting. But then the other part of this equation is it's a different mindset from when I had joined. Period. Night and day difference.
And when you joined, was a different mindset than when I almost joined.
Well, and what's funny is the description you're giving is almost reminiscent of the 1960s and 1970s anti-military like sentiment
I think it's that
of
on
the public.
steroids. I think it's that on steroids times 10.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and you know what's interesting is it was love and peace and hate war, and during that time they were big on PCP, LSD, weed, cocaine, all of those big drugs. What's funny is a lot of people did marijuana then. What's funny to me now is marijuana is just kind of like an expectation now. The other drugs that are involved, it really it kind of like gives this sentiment or this notion that I can be even more belligerent and more psychotic in my or how about psychopathic?
Oh, without question. It's interesting because you mentioned the 60s. I think, like, I graduated in 1981 from high school. I could have
Mhm.
graduated in 1980. I had all my credits. In fact, that's when I was looking at going in the military. That was, and my ex father in law was a recruiter for the Navy, right?
Mhm.
In the early 80s. He said that was the toughest time they ever had because it was right after Vietnam, right?
Yep.
Nobody wanted to join the military.
It,
Nobody was signing up.
yep.
It was worse then than it is now. We're headed there though, right?
Mhm.
And a large part of the reason why was, the protests of the 60s, the Vietnam War, all this stuff. But what I'm seeing and what I suspect is going to happen, having lived through that, I think it's going to be worse, right? Because right
Yeah.
now, I still think, and some of the people in the comments are even saying, kind of lead me there. I still think 9/11 is still there, right? There are people that are patriarchal. Whoa. Oh, wow.
Patriotic?
Patriotic is what I meant to say. Get it out of my head. I still think there's some patriotism is still there, but it is
Oh yeah.
falling away fast. And I look at, like I said, I've been talking a lot to the kids in that age group, that 18 to
Mhm.
30-ish age group, right? I think the one behind them, that's going to be the really scary moment, right? Because those boys, they're much more conservative. They're already leaning conservative politically at 18, but the one behind them are going to be even more so. And so are the girls, by the way. I think it's going to create even more division, right?
Uh,
And it's going to be interesting to see how this all shakes out in the next 20 or 30 years.
I almost wonder if it isn't going to be reminiscent of that pre-World War II time in between World War One and World War II, where you know,
I'll in some ways, yes. Where I'll disagree with you is the division back then. I think it was more about peace versus war, if you will, right?
Mhm.
Now it's gender, right? You're seeing the boys go hard right, the girls going hard left, and there is nothing in the middle, like nothing. I
But
mean, there is, but
that's almost kind of like right after World War One, where you had the suffragettes, and then
yes,
you had
very much so.
it,
Yes,
it, but one thing I've noticed is I didn't see the men in that time go hard right until it was like, okay, we're going into World War II. Sign me up.
Yeah, because they weren't being vilified as men then.
Right.
That's
And
the
that's a
difference,
big
right?
deal.
When you have women making TikTok after TikTok every single day by the millions, trashing men, just trashing them, men are going to go, why am I going to defend them? Why am I going to go fight and die and to save Taiwan? What is that going to do for me, right?
Mhm.
You look at Ukraine right now, and Russia for that matter, and not picking sides here. I'm talking about the men. I don't give two craps about the politics about it. Two entire generations of Ukrainian men have been wiped out already. Already. Russia's not much better off. They have a bigger population. They can hold it better, right? Ukraine's in deep shit in 20 years. There aren't going to be any Ukrainians. Um, and you see the men are literally being, the ones that are of age are literally being kidnapped off the street and forced to go fight. Whereas the women are sitting back making TikTok videos about how rough their life is while they add 3 filters to their Instagram photo. You know what I mean? Don't think American boys aren't seeing that. They are. And they're like, why would I even bother? Right. And when you extrapolate that out over the next 20 years or so, it, it's going to be a disaster. And politicians have already figured this out. You know that, right? Democratic Party spent $20 million trying to figure out why men didn't vote for him. Biggest waste of money ever. But
Yeah.
to their credit, as we talked about earlier, in Virginia, they're now creating a commission. That's the right move, right?
Well, and you and I know that state politics and federal politics never see eye to eye.
Oh, they hate each other.
They do.
They do hate each other.
Because Congress is always trying to rob rights away from the states, and states are always trying to take the rights back. Oh my, creates quite the dynamic.
But it'll be, when you look at stuff like that and the parties at all levels, federal, state, even local, right, trying to navigate this, and go, because men decided the last election. And, we talked about this at length right afterward. Now we have another election coming up in 3 weeks,
At the
which are
local levels.
they're known as munis, right?
Yes.
Most people don't vote in them. Less than 15%, I think, nationwide vote in them. These are the most important elections of all.
Oh, absolutely.
Because
These are
your
the ones
mayor,
that,
as
yes,
one sitting right with me here, decides your life, whether you know it or not. Right? Way more than President Trump does.
you want to talk about your property taxes? Come talk to me.
Mayor,
You want to know where your property,
council, town, all that stuff.
you want to talk about where your infrastructure dollars are being spent? Do you want to talk about where your emergency response dollars
Schools, education.
are? Schools, they're their own tax levying authority here.
But,
And
but school boards
yes,
elections are now, right?
yes, they're with us because
And
they're a municipality.
like I hear so many people go, "Oh, well, it's just the local. I don't care." And then next year they're like, "Why did my school taxes go up $500?" Well,
Because
because
you
you
voted
chose
for the
not to vote
wrong,
for anybody.
right.
You're worried about the president. What Trump does on any given day doesn't really affect your life, right? It really doesn't. What your mayor does, what your city council does, what your county does, what your school boards do, they directly affect your life every single day. Yet we choose not to go vote for them, right? And you talk about it from the perspective of men's issues. If you want shelters for men, domestic violence shelters, the fight is not with the federal government. It's part of the fight. I'll give you that. But if you don't have people at the local level trying to get grants, federal's not going to do anything.
Yep.
It's got to be somebody local, right? That's why, like, I'm reaching out to the candidates in my area because I don't care what party you're with. I couldn't give two shits. What I want to know is, and I have my questionnaire, Are you going to support opening a domestic violence shelter for men in our area? Because there is not one, right? What are you going to do about boys' education? And I don't want to hear you blame, if you're not on the school board, I don't want to hear it. Well, that's a question for the school board. Bullshit. If you're right, because we have a mayor race right now, right? Um, I'm asking all three candidates, including the mayor who's been in for 20 years, what are you doing about the boys' education? Because the county and the school board aren't doing shit, right? Here's a question that I'm throwing out. You'll love this one, Curtis, right?
Okay, let's hear it.
Well, to the mayors, all three candidates. So there's 2 Democrats running and 1 Republican. I sent this to all 3 of them. Recently, the police department has been advertising a women's self-defense course. Why is there none for men? Will you support them implementing one? Haven't gotten an answer yet.
What?
Yep. It's specifically for women only. Why?
Why?
Oh, now I've taught those courses, by the way. Okay. Men could take benefit from them because you don't actually teach people how to fight in those courses. You teach them how to avoid the situations, right? I haven't yet to get an answer. Now, I'm going to keep pressing them. And technically, I'm wondering if it's even legal.
Here's an interesting moment for me because being the mayor of a little tiny town, it's technically nonpartisan. It's a nonpartisan election, right? So I'm looking at stuff like parks. I'm looking at stuff like our local pool. I'm looking at like my library. Our library is not typical. Our library is not the library, right? We have programming for young kids. We have programming for elementary and middle school age kids. Sometimes what we get is programming that brings high schoolers in to sit with the middle school and the elementary age kids to kind of like interact and have.
I love that.
You want to talk about educating the young men get to sit with a little bit older men. And I'll tell you something else. You know what I love about our library? We have these old men. They're in their 70s and 80s, retired teachers and farmers. And they come in and they sit around, they drink coffee, they interact with the young kids that come in, they interact with the young parents that come in, they interact with everyone who comes in. And guess what? I've got opportunities for the older folks in our community to pass along some mentorship moments, guidance, and wisdom all at the same time going on. It's a unique situation where I think we need to have more of that.
Oh, without question. It's mentorship. I talk about that a lot, right? Is that's been lost. I had mentors growing up. I talked about the one teacher, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
Without that, again, it's going to help both boys and girls, but it's really going to help the boys at this point, right?
Right.
Because they don't have it at all. Girls do have mentorships available. You're bringing up an interesting point, and this might be a good topic for next week because you're a mayor, right?
Mm-hmm.
As we could talk about, what can we do with our local, because the munis are happening now. What can we do with our local politicians as far as
absolutely.
That could be a great show. So if you guys think that would be a good show next week, I can interview Curtis, and Lindsay will be with us too. But because you're an expert on it, because you are one. Now, what's your population?
Our population here is approximately 1,380.
All right. So even though it's small, right? But
Mm-hmm.
the concepts that you're talking about apply to
right. We're in a county where
right.
our total population. So we're in a county where it's 576 square miles. It's a typical county size. Our total population is right at about 100,000 people.
But the argument I'm making is that even though you have, 1,300 or so, right?
Mm-hmm.
The issues you're dealing with are really not much different than, say, the people running for New York City mayor.
No.
Different scale, absolutely.
Totally different scale.
But
and they have ways to deal with it. They have boards, they have commissions. You know what? I interact, and I'm the one that's dealing with all of it at the same level because we're so small. We don't need those boards and commissions. We
Mhm.
need specific boards like a library board. We have to have one under state law because they have to govern a library in our state. We
Mhm.
have planning and zoning, which is typical of any community, right? We have the board of adjustments. Hey, do we have to adhere to this ordinance, or can we grant a variance because it's reasonable under the law?
Mhm.
We have those things. Where I think where we are really needing focus and where we really capitalized under my mayorship is community involvement, public interaction, and public engagement, and really engaging the young, bringing them in and mixing them with the old. The old is really where the mentorship can take place, where I'm bridging gaps of people born in the 20s and 30s that were born in the last 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's kind of what I do with my channel, right? My
Mhm.
channel is effectively a mentorship for younger men. Like when you really look at it, right? Is I'm sharing my wisdom with them. People hate me for it. The women especially hate me for it because they don't like what I'm saying. But this could be a really good topic for us because, again, we don't want to go too far into politics, but a lot of the solutions we're looking for men's issues need to start coming from the local level.
Mhm.
And we need to have these discussions with our local politicians that
Yes.
are running right now, right? And putting them on the spot and then frying them publicly if they I mean,
Yep.
I'm waiting. If I don't get a response, I'm going to call them all out publicly. I'm already planning on it.
Steve, I make $1,500 a year or $125 a month, and my take home pay is $115.33 a month.
Don't spend it all in one place.
Right? It doesn't even cover my expenses to be the mayor, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's small town, but go ahead if you got other questions, throw them in there. I
Let's
did see
see.
one earlier. Let me address it quick because it was like an hour ago. But Steve asked what this is on my hand. So I have been diagnosed with skin cancer again. They dug it out yesterday. They're doing a biopsy. I haven't gotten the results yet. More to come on that. So I'll just leave that at that. So you're going to see it in videos because I don't use filters to hide anything. What you see is what you get.
I'm really living the high life, and I'm a baller.
Yeah, we only got a couple minutes. You guys have any questions or anything? And I think what we'll do next week, let's plan on that. And I'll also share some of the questions that I'm sending out to people
Okay.
at different levels because we have people running for county seats, we have school boards,
Mhm.
we have people running for mayor,
Mhm.
city
City
council,
city council, yeah.
and when I was doing the radio show about politics, we always talked about the munis and
Mhm.
how important they are, and yet they're by far the least populated, if you will, for electorals, right? Um, it's less than 15%. So the people that go vote decide your taxes, your property taxes, your school taxes,
Mhm.
your school decisions. If you're worried about boys in education, the first place you need to be going is your school board.
Right.
Well, if you're not participating in the election, you're directly saying you don't care about boys in education. If you want a domestic violence shelter in your area, you need to be talking to, in my case, it would be the county, right? It would be more county than city. And people running for the county positions, asking them, why are you funding for a female shelter but not a male one? Put them on the spot.
Right. Absolutely.
You know, you could take it to any of the issues on men. It's child support, even local level, because guess where the enforcement offices are? Locally. They're state run, right?
Mhm.
But don't think the county's not involved because they are.
County attorney especially.
DAs,
Mhm.
DAs are at the county level,
Yeah.
at least where I am in the some of the city. The person in charge of enforcing the child support law is the DA.
Yes.
So if you're not voting because you don't care who the DA is, and you're a father and dealing with child support, don't come crying to me.
And at our level, you shouldn't be worrying about whether they have a D or an R or
I
an
don't
L
care.
behind their name. None of that. None of the parties
None of it.
should matter. It's, are you getting the services that are required? One. And are they fiscally responsible is the other question, while fulfilling those needs. You know what? I get a lot of flack because our utility rates are high. But the problem is when you're dealing with 40 to 50 years of deferred maintenance, what am I supposed to do when everyone before me has done nothing but kick the
Push the
can, kick the
can
can,
down and
kick
kick
the can?
it down. Yep.
Now we're at critical mass, and guess what? Nobody can kick the can anymore.
Well, you're
There's
seeing the equates on the federal level. Federal deficit now is what, 37, $38 trillion? Oh, we'll worry about it later.
no, you got to deal with that right now, because you know what? If my kids are still dealing with it, who does that
Forget your
fall on?
kids. Your kids
Right.
are going to be dealing. When you have people don't realize $37 trillion, 1/5 of the federal budget now goes to pay the interest on that.
It's
Imagine
unreal.
imagine if we didn't have that, right? And it's both parties. This is not one party's fault. It's
No,
both
no,
parties,
no, no.
right?
Not
If
at
you
all.
had an extra $1 trillion as a slush fund, you think we could get a domestic violence shelter for men in every state? Hell, we'd have 2,000 of them, just like the women have. And it would cost $50 million. There'd be plenty of money for it.
How
Right?
much money does VEWA give?
1 billion on average.
1 billion.
On an average year, Bayway funds about $1 billion. I'm rounding a little bit, but it's right around $1 billion. Think about it. They've been doing that since 1994 or 5. So, and it's been actually higher amounts than that in the past. So, but just using the billion, women's groups have been given roughly $30 billion. Guess how much men's groups have gotten? A big fat zero. And here's the final thing, because we're running out of time, that I'll point out why the municipals are so important. Your governor, your state legislators, usually your congressmen, often your senators, federal senators, were all local politicians at one time or another.
Mm-hmm.
They all come up through the grapevine, or as I call it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You go and look. They all came up through local government.
Yep.
Now, in my area, they're talking about it actually. So you start at the school board, then you go to the county, right? Potentially to the city, then into the state, and then from state into federal, right? And all you got to do is in North Carolina is look at the governor, look at Roy Cooper, the former governor who's now running for senator. He was a local politician at one point.
All of Iowa's congressional members, including senators, started out at lower level politics and eventually ended up in the state house.
You just start working your way up the ladder.
Yep.
It's, that's how important it is. But yet people don't vote for them. And specific to the issues that we're talking about with men and boys, it needs to start there. These elections in the next 2 to 3 weeks are critical.
Mm-hmm.
We sent a message last fall. We're about to send another one if we don't vote this time. Because as you're going to see in the video I got coming out, the Republican Party is basically spitting in our face.
Right.
Basically, that's what they're doing. Democrats are not much better, but at least we got to give them credit. They're at least trying something in Virginia. Credit where credit's due. Right?
Well, yeah. I mean, you give the devil its due all the time, anytime you
Have
can.
to. I mean, I am not going to knock the Democratic Party when they do something like that.
Correct.
I don't know their reasoning behind it. Well, their direct reason. We all know the real reason. They're trying to get votes, right? But at least they're doing something. They're not sitting there going, yeah, we're going to haul all the men off of Medicare, but we're going to let the women stay.
There's always a silver lining to this.
Many of them, actually.
Yes.
But yeah, these are all things of that we, and somebody, I just saw it. Hold on, I lost it. Richard said local elections have a nasty habit of indoctrinating the young. They absolutely do.
Yep.
Without question on that. Great point, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at just basic things like I talked about, a self-defense course.
Hmm?
If they're going to offer it to women and not men,
What are we doing?
that's blatant discrimination.
Absolutely.
If we're not going to argue that, and you're going to go, well, who cares? If you're not willing to fight that, which should be an easy win, by the way, right?
Hmm.
Why should we fight for child support then? If we can't make noise on something as simple as that, they're never going to pay attention to us, right? But yeah, that's the thing.
You either want true gender equality or you don't.
Exactly. So, by the way, I emailed the chief of police, but he quit. He retired. So now there's a new one. I haven't gone after, but I did when they did it in the spring also. And I sent him an email. And like 3 days later, it had nothing to do with me, but like 3 days later, he announces he was retiring. I'd love to take credit for it, but I can't. But yeah, I mean, little things like that matter, guys. And that's the point we're trying to make. All right, we got to wrap it up. We ran a minute long. Who cares? Don't forget to like, subscribe, all that other bullshit.
Yep.
Next week
And we'll see you next week.
All right, guys. Have a good one.